Hello and welcome to The Bottom Line on TVP World. This is where we unpack some of the main business and economic stories of the day. I'm your host, Marie Cato. Not a single molecule more. This is how EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jørgensen summarizes the European stance towards Russian natural gas supplies. Jørgensen has reiterated this position during an informal meeting of EU energy ministers, which took place in Warsaw on Monday and Tuesday. The meeting took place during a whirlwind of energy-related developments summarized in Jan Kennedy's feature. Take a look.
Another quarter, another battle within the EU over Russian sanctions. In one corner, Viktor Orban, who threatens a veto over the extension of existing packages. In the other, the European Commission, which, according to Financial Times, is exploring ways to bypass Hungary's veto. Options under consideration: imposing tariffs and capital controls on Russia. These measures require only a majority vote, but unanimity remains the EU's preferred route.
That is always the main objective, is to have unanimous support to anything that we put forward on sanctions. This is still the main objective, and we are working essentially on that objective before considering other options.
This is part of a broader conversation about energy security within the 27-member bloc, as the EU is working on legal measures to phase out Russian gas imports by 2027. This was one of the key topics of the informal gathering of EU energy ministers, which took place in Warsaw on Monday and Tuesday.
This is a very clear signal from us that we do not wish to import as much as one single molecule in the future. So for us, it's a very clear roadmap to end the dependency. The European Union is very clear. We do not wish energy from Russia in the future. We don't wish it now, and we will not wish it after a peace.
But some member states, especially landlocked Slovakia, which remains heavily reliant on pipeline imports from Russia, vocally opposes the potential ban.
We are fundamentally opposed to the European Commission preparing measures that not only harm our national interests and the purchasing power of Slovak households, but also damage the competitiveness of the entire European economy.
Hungary is in the same boat as its northern neighbour. But in this case, a veto from the two countries won't be enough to hamper the 27-nation bloc's objectives.
Well, in this situation, actually not a unanimous vote is needed. Basically, they need qualified majority because it's not sanction. It's basically, let's call it intervention into the market. So there is a need only for qualified majority.
While over the past 2.5 years, the EU has by far been the biggest buyer of Russian gas, feeding more than 40 billion euros into the Kremlin's war chest, it has managed to reduce its reliance on Russian imports in favour of deliveries from other countries. Experts say that with new partnerships developing, cutting the Russian gas supply altogether by 2027 will be feasible.
Gas consumption basically has been going down for a while. So this is one thing. Another thing, it will be, of course, the US and Qatar. We have some additional projects in Mozambique and basically new projects near Cyprus, new project, Neptune project in Black Sea near Romania. So there will be, of course, there will be additional supply for basically to phase out Russian fossil fuel, in particular gas.
Some European CEOs have recently been advocating for the return to the purchase of Russian gas. It remains to be seen whether Europe will be as strong-willed when it comes to Russian energy as politicians declare it is.
The Energy Summit hosted on Tuesday in Warsaw has reiterated the significance of phasing out Russian oil, gas and nuclear energy imports from EU markets in a steady and coordinated manner. But that also requires European efforts to ensure European energy security in other areas, such as bringing renewable energy into the mix, the reconstruction of Ukrainian energy infrastructure, and ensuring that blackouts like the one recently that took place in Spain and Portugal don't happen again. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Wojciech Jakóbik, founder of the Energy Security Center, to tell us more about the broader European challenges we are facing today. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, my pleasure.
So today, Warsaw hosted that informal energy summit, bringing together all of Europe's energy ministers and also Ukraine's energy minister. Europe's energy roadmap that was updated less than a week ago was the focus of today's summit, with that aim to phase out Russian gas, oil and nuclear energy imports. And they're supposed to be coordinated, secure, and they're supposed to ensure that gradual phase out. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that is feasible and that's really going to happen by 2027?
It really depends on political will, because from the technical point of view, it is totally possible to quit Russian gas supplies. Even now, we have an ample supply of LNG coming from US, Qatar, Middle East, anywhere in the world outside of Russia. We are ready when it comes to the infrastructure. Even when it comes to Slovakia and Hungary, they are already having a route of non-Russian gas supply, which is ready to be used. You can use Polish and Ukrainian gas transit system to deliver non-Russian gas supplies to Slovakia or Hungary and get a good price from American suppliers. The talks are underway. It is also a part of trade deals between the European Commission and the US, so everything depends on a political will. The ones who want to stay with Russian gas supply will stay with it, but European Commission is to give us the tools to quit the reliance on Russian gas supplies as soon as possible.
Our reporter attended this energy summit on Tuesday. He spoke with the EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jørgensen. He asked about Russian gas, and this is what Jørgensen had to say. Let's listen to this soundbite.
This is a very clear signal from us that we do not wish to import as much as one single molecule in the future. So for us, it's a very clear roadmap to end the dependency. The European Union is very clear. We do not wish energy from Russia in the future. We don't wish it now, and we will not wish it after a peace.
So this is a very clear and adamant stance. But Hungary doesn't seem to be on board. Slovakia seems to have some issues. And also there is this idea that both Slovakia and Hungary need to present plans as all the other European countries. So you say the political will is the main problem.
Yeah, because also you have France and Germany who are importing LNG from Russia on daily basis. It is a heavy supply reaching almost 30 billion cubic meters. So it is a lot. So they are doing so because they think that this short-sighted policy of looking for the cheapest alternative is also providing them with security of supply. But the energy crunch from 2022 that was ignited by Russian Gazprom shows us clearly that it is also the business case behind reaching for non-Russian gas supplies, not only American supplies, but plenty of other sources that are in place that could be delivered to countries like Slovakia and Hungary. Everything depends on politics, and you have a big politics in play. Those countries are leading a pro-Russian policy. They also have some foreign policy goals mixed with this dependence on Russia, so it is really complicated.
So just bringing in a little bit more politics into the mix, we heard that Reuters less than a week ago reported that there are some rumors that Washington and Moscow have held some discussions with the US helping to revive Russian gas sales to the continent. What is the significance and potential impact of a deal like this?
So such approach would go totally against like 20 years of US policy of limiting Russian influence over Central and Eastern Europe. And this influence is gained also using natural gas as a weapon. American policy was steady, and it was always about limiting those this influence of Russia inside our region. So coming back to the table, providing the region with Russian supply, which is competition to American LNG, would be illogical and contradictory to long-term US policy. So it depends who you ask, because if you ask Steve Witkoff, who is pro-Russian in his stance, he might agree that there is some room for cooperation after the war. But if you ask Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he is totally different when it comes to this issue.
And what do you think about the rumors about the possible restart of Nord Stream operations?
It depends on German will, because without German certification procedure, there is no way of turning on when it comes to Nord Stream 2. You would need to invest heavily in Nord Stream 2 reconstruction, because one of the lines is down because of the sabotage from 2022, and you would need to gain some interest of European customers. So even if there is a will to restart it, there is a long way to go to make it happen. And we hear from European Commission that there are also Nord Stream 2 AG company sanctions that are being discussed right now.
We have Russian gas that is still flowing into Europe in the form of LNG. Do you think that Europe will actually be able to come up with a watertight legal mechanism to ban the supply of Russian gas?
It's easy, because you can enact a force majeure. If European Commission is providing a legislative proposal that is enacting a force majeure, the companies wouldn't need to pay the compensation in case they are not fulfilling the contract. We could see that in 2022 with all different inventions when it comes to coal embargo, which is in place, the fuel embargo, the LPG embargo, everything was done to limit the supplies. And it brings us back to the beginning and the political will. If there is a will in EU, we'll find a way to quit reliance on Russian gas, and it is good for the sake of our security of supply, our business.
And what do you make of the public statements that have been circulating, made by some CEOs of some energy companies like Total Energy's boss, who say that Europe could potentially go back to buying Russian gas after the end of the war, the reason being that it helps them stay competitive?
Some would potentially put the hand into the fire, but the result would be the same as in 2022. It is only a question of time. So we have an ample supply of non-Russian gas from around the world, not only from US. We are investing heavily in alternative routes and alternative sources, expensive infrastructure. So it wouldn't be too wise to lose all this investment, to make it disappear, to lose all those investments that we already have taken. So it's better from the economic perspective, from the perspective of our foreign policy, which should be impregnated when it comes to the Russian influence. So I don't see why should we go back to Russian gas supply if we are safe to quit it totally.
And yet some European countries are still very adamant on the Russian supplies. And there are alternatives on the table. Poland has shown that it's doable. Poland has essentially succeeded. What are your thoughts?
Of course, Poland, Lithuania, there are multiple examples of countries which are not importing anything from Russia. The cheap price that is making some people looking for Russian gas supplies is cheap until this gas is gone, like it was in 2022. So you have this risk premium included in the gas price, which appears to be cheap at the very first sight, but looking at the history, it is not cheap, it is not secure. So it's good for the transatlantic relations, it is good for our business, for our market to stabilize, because the energy crunch is not gone yet. We have another heating season on the way with record low gas storage in Germany, for example. So there is a lot to happen in future. We could see multiple new black swans also on the natural gas market. For the security of supply inside Europe, we shouldn't get in a new dependence on Russian gas supply.
And so I'm going to ask this question again. Do you believe that Europe will be able to wean itself off Russian energy altogether by 2027, which is the deadline set after the invasion of Ukraine? And also this is the deadline that has been set by the energy roadmap by the EU Commission.
So when it comes to beliefs, I'm an optimist and I believe we can do it. But looking at facts and numbers, we could do it easily just right now if we only want to. If Slovaks or Hungarians are willing to quit Russian gas supplies, they can book Polish LNG terminal tomorrow to speak with Polish Orlen company and get the gas deal done tomorrow. But everything depends on a political will.
So it's all down to politics. And then speaking of even more politics, we have Donald Trump, who is traveling to the Middle East. He's going to visit Saudi Arabia right at a time when oil prices are low, in line with his wishes. Do you think the Saudis have increased output to please the US president ahead of his visit?
The Saudis are the most flexible OPEC producers, so they can do a lot depending on their policy. And it appears that they are tired of trying to increase the oil price when the market signals are making it decrease all the time. And they are looking for a new price war. So fighting for the client by an ample supply that is coming to the market. It would be in line with Donald Trump's demands since he took over the government in US. He was arguing that OPEC needs to increase the supply. Here we see
Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and he is all about increasing oil supply, not only from OPEC, but also from US. So if we have an ample supply of oil, it is a good sign for importer countries inside the European Union, but a bad sign for Russia, which is fueling its war economy by petrodollars.
So a barrel of Brent now costs $65. How low can the price go? Because the Energy Information Agency, a statistical arm of the US Department of Energy, thinks it can be going even lower, with an average price of $59 per barrel on average in 2026. What do you think?
So if we have a continued economic slowdown connected with an ample supply from Middle East, from Northern America, not only US, and we have a moderate interest in fossil fuels in Europe, it is a perfect solution to reach 50 USD per barrel next year. But we need to remember that there are always some black swans, geopolitical tensions connected with fossil fuels markets. And if we have some surprises in Taiwan, maybe somewhere in Middle East, in Iran, there could be a total change of moods of the markets. And we've seen that already in 2022.
So do you think that the trend could actually reverse?
Always, because dependence on fossil fuels make you vulnerable on volatile resource markets, and they are heavily volatile because of the unstable situation all over the world. So for now, we see an economic downturn, we see an ample supply of hydrocarbons, but in case there is a new conflict, a big conflict, which is discussed in Western capitals, then we would see some price increases instead.
And just my final question, do you think that low oil prices can offset the uncertainty a little bit brought by the prospect of a trade war for Central and Eastern European countries?
So the lower oil prices are a good sign for the importing countries, because every 10 USD per barrel down brings like plus 1 GDP percentage point for the economies like this. So it could help us to get over the economic slowdown. But on the other hand, the trade war is also impairing our economy. So it wouldn't be like nothing happened.
Okay. Wojciech Jakóbik, founder of the Energy Security Center, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And that concludes The Bottom Line for today. I was your host, Marie Cato. We're on every weekday at 5:10 CET on TVP World. And in the meantime, for the latest in regional business, follow us on X and on tvpworld.com. And for more news and analysis, stay with us on TVP World. Goodbye.